What's going on, FUD Nation, and welcome back. Today we have a very serious and very important episode about, you guessed it, FUD. Now, I know the channel might lead you to believe that we always talk about FUD, but that's not really the case. The name comes from my desire to help deal with the FUD in both a positive and negative way, but today it's going to be the latter. We're going to be talking about some serious FUD hitting one of the biggest and most influential cryptocurrencies in the entire market. This report is very important and you are definitely going to want to watch this video. It seems as though there is a very serious FUD storm brewing in the Litecoin camp. Now, I can't take full credit for this, as this was first reported, or cracked, the story was cracked wide open by Cryptos R Us, which is an awesome crypto channel. I highly encourage you to check it out. And it was this video from 21 hours ago, Litecoin leaked chat, Charlie Lee's House of Cards. Very interesting video. I'm going to go through my synopsis of key points of everything involved in this, but I just wanted to shout out Cryptos R Us for being on the front lines of this whole story. Really, since the bottom in December, has been one of the most resilient, one of the highest performing charts in all of cryptocurrency, making a staggering move from $23 up to about $140. That's almost a 600% move and one of the highest performing cryptocurrencies in this new bull run, certainly outpacing Bitcoin. Now, a lot of this hype around Litecoin was coming from the much anticipated halving, where the block reward for Litecoin was going to be cut down from 25 to 12.5, very similar to the halvings that we've seen happen with Bitcoin, the one that we're anticipating in 2020 with the Bitcoin block reward getting cut in half once again, except Litecoin is sort of one cycle behind, as this is Litecoin's second halving, whereas we're coming up to Bitcoin's third halving. Now, all of this FUD can be traced back to a single social media post. We have here the Litecoin Foundation posting here on August 2nd of 2019, hey, hashtag Litecoin fan. We know you're eager to see how Litecoin can become even stronger than it is today, so are we. To that end, we've set up a dedicated wallet to fund development projects like confidential transactions. You can lend your support here. So essentially there's this article talking about confidential transactions and more or less asking for donations if you want to support the project. Now, of course, this is kind of curious, as we've seen many integrations between Litecoin and, HTC's new Exodus. We've seen Litecoin on the ring of the UFC Octagon. These are very expensive and we'd imagine difficult integrations to achieve. We have Litecoin being acknowledged as a token by IMF. There's a lot of sort of bullish macro news about Litecoin. We're seeing Litecoin as a sponsor on big international events we know that those sponsorships are certainly far from free. And then we hear that essentially Litecoin would like you to lend your support to their development of confidential transactions. So if you're following this closely, you might be a bit curious. Why would Litecoin be asking for small donations? And this led to what is really the impetus, the catalyst for today's stories, which is that Charlie Lee, in a private chat between Charlie and the head of the Litecoin Foundation, has acknowledged that there is no active development on the Litecoin blockchain. There's a developer drop-off Medium article where Peter Ryan on September 4th of 2018 essentially suggests that Litecoin's GitHub activity has completely stalled out, with essentially consistent development from all of these blockchains except for Litecoin, which you can see here on April of 2018 has all but stagnated. Then we have a response article from a Litecoin developer, Ilir Gashi, who essentially makes these counterpoints to the FUD. So he makes the point that the GitHub commits are not equivalent to development, that development is a much rounder term, that there's so much more involved in development than just GitHub commits. He essentially says that we're not working on the master branch, we're working on these other branches, that working on the master branch is actually risky. And that, Litecoin GitHub commits are also synced from core developers' forked repositories. There is very little difference between Bitcoin Core and Litecoin Core client. So we have merged most of Litecoin related commits into a few commits, and when a new release of Bitcoin Core is tagged, we pull the changes from upstream and pick our commits. Essentially, he's trying to explain why there aren't very many commits and saying this isn't very much a big deal. We're a lot like Bitcoin anyway, and we should leave it that way. And when Bitcoin updates, we'll update too. And then he also says Litecoin doesn't need constant updates. He's saying we don't need commits. We don't need to update. Again, these are all, arguments where you could go after each one of these and make arguments as to why these are very much so not valid. That's not the point of this video. And finally, he says that Essentially, Litecoin works today as a cryptocurrency. We process $500 million worth of transactions on the Litecoin blockchain each day, and it works as a global decentralized sound money today. It doesn't need to be constantly innovated on. It doesn't need new development. It doesn't need to be kept up to date. And unfortunately, I also disagree with this. Again, not the point of this video today. I'm just laying out the sort of framework, the context of how this conversation with Charlie Lee, who has purportedly admitted that Litecoin has no active development on it, and the context in which those comments were made. Let us not forget that Charlie Lee has sold all of his Litecoin at the peak of its price 2 years ago, as reported by TechCrunch. This is the post that led me to this conversation. It was from Cryptos R Us. He made a YouTube video about it and also linked to where you can find for yourself the chat logs from this private conversation between Charlie Lee and Franklin, who's the head of the Litecoin Foundation, about the development on the Litecoin blockchain. There's actually a Telegram group that's sort of dedicated and forwarded all these messages and allows you to download the chat logs. And the channel is called LTC Has No Dev. LTC Has No Dev, all one word. And in there you can download the chat logs, which I've gone ahead and opened here. This is the HTML of the chat logs, which is much, much easier to read. So we have Ilir Gashi, who's of course the person who posted the anti-FUD article. And here you see Ilir is posting in that Twitter update where he says, hey guys, we're working on confidential transactions, or CTs as they're referred to in this chat coming. We get internal pushback in this, private confidential Litecoin conversation where you have Chris saying, no offense, this article is so weak. I find you hard pressed to get any serious contributions from that. It comes across as desperate by being so vague. There's zero detail about what's being done, where the money will go. Just comes across as, hey, we don't have much to share, so we've kind of given up. Please give us some money and maybe we can continue. Now you have Franklin, who's the head of the Litecoin Foundation, saying, I had mentioned this internally. It looks wrong to see us spending multiple six figures, yet asking for small donations when it comes to development. Priorities are completely wrong and gives a poor image. And Chris says, what was the response? Seems clear that partnerships should be secondary. Of course, we've seen so many partnerships from Litecoin, from the UFC to HTC. We've seen integrations left, right, and center. We see them really pushing the public perception of Litecoin, but are they pushing the actual technology forward? And again, they say that confidential transactions have been something that apparently Litecoin is working on, according to Charlie Lee, since it was announced in February. And specifically because the original timeline for CTs, or confidential transactions, was, quote, sometime in 2019. Now we have a very telling response saying, sadly, you can't magically turn money into good crypto developers. Should have a candidate ready before explicitly asking for dev donations, in my opinion. Meaning, they don't even have a candidate that they would hire to do this development work that they're now asking for donations, meaning they're going to take this money in and just let it sit, or who knows what they're going to do with it, because they don't actually have someone to pay with this money to do the development work they're talking about. It's all extremely, extremely suspicious, especially given that you'd think Litecoin would have their tentacles pretty deep in the crypto community for finding development work. And so now we have Franklin coming in and saying, I was extremely disappointed to discover that no progress had been made on CT since the announcement, meaning since February, since Litecoin has been absolutely booming, we have no progress on this announcement of confidential transactions. Especially when I stand on stage telling everyone it's happening and we're actively working on it, meaning he's feeling like he's coming across as a liar because he's standing there saying we're doing this when apparently they're not doing it. The foundation has opted to put all its efforts behind marketing and spend gross amounts of money flexing partnerships instead of doing the actual work. So now we have Charlie Lee finally coming in. And by the way, if you don't believe that these are real messages, we have screenshots of Charlie Lee actually acknowledging that they are. And I will go ahead and show you those after this was all unearthed and definitely confirmed by Cryptos R Us. So a big thank you to Cryptos R Us. Definitely follow Cryptos R Us, great channel. So Charlie Lee says, Franklin, please stop. The foundation has not spent any amount of money on partnerships. Stop creating FUD. I have corrected you time and time again in our private chats. Why are you publicly creating FUD now? I'm extremely disappointed. And Charlie Lee says, every single dime that's spent on partnerships came from my own pockets, with Chinji and a few others, Chris and Teletan, pitching in for the Dolphins partnerships. Like Null22 said, you can't create good crypto code by throwing money at it. If I can, I would have. Essentially, this is an extremely telling statement here. Almost all of the Litecoin Foundation's money is Charlie Lee's. He is essentially Litecoin. He's making these partnerships, and he's saying that with all the money in the world, and believe you me, he has quite a bit of it, hundreds of millions at the very least. And he's saying he can't create good crypto code by throwing money at it. There's nothing he can do to create this good crypto code. And that, to me, is an extremely sad proposition. Because you think of Litecoin as having almost limitless funds at this point. They have hundreds of millions to be spending. But apparently, that's not enough to get a single good developer writing a few good lines of code. Very sad stuff. And again, given that this has all been semi-confirmed as Charlie Lee being authentic, this is from Charlie Lee, this is a very sad realization that Litecoin is not seeing any way to continue development. But let's continue. You speak as if we are grossly misusing our foundation money. Stop spreading FUD. Franklin says, we can hire developers, sponsor people to work on the tech who have the skills. It's 100% your money, and I'm advising that it looks bad as we are seen to be doing nothing else. I have no power over you and Shinji. If you want to throw your money at sports games, then I won't stop you. What is the foundation anyway, Charlie? It's you, no one else. So now we have confirmation from the head of the Litecoin Foundation that all that exists here is Charlie Lee. He is, judge, jury, and executioner. What he wants, whether it's squandering the money on Dolphins games, sponsorships, or UFC sponsorships, or, taking everyone on group trips to Vegas, that is what the money gets spent on. That there's no democracy. There's no organization here that's making group decisions. It's just Charlie Lee. And disturbingly, of course, we know that Charlie Lee has no active stake in Litecoin because he's sold all of his LTC. So again, we have some disturbing revelations here to find out that Charlie Lee is really all that there is behind Litecoin, that the head of the foundation has no decision-making authority, and that really has been kept in the dark here, which we'll get to in a second, and that Charlie Lee is just all that there is. And of course, we know that Charlie Lee is not the most, dedicated to the Litecoin project. Again, all very, very sad, very concerning. So Charlie Lee says, if that's really the case, then might as well pack up and go home. Wow. I don't need to explain that comment. That's Charlie Lee saying, if it's the case that I'm the only one here, then let's all go home. I'll let you all sit with that and think about what you think that means. Franklin says, you have the money and the authority. I suggest plans and try to steer the project to do a business side, and each time it's grassroots. But you on top, where's Thrasher? Have you heard from him since he appears to be ignoring our messages about dev updates? If we can't fix code issues, then why are we begging for money on Twitter? Again, it's all very disturbing that if the case is true, that they can't fix dev updates, that they have no team, that they're really just begging for money on Twitter while on the side spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on sports partnerships and different marketing endeavors and integrations, then why are they even promoting this project? Why are they even asking for donations? It's extremely dishonest and extremely irresponsible to be doing that. Charlie Lee says, we're not begging for money. People have asked how they can contribute money towards coding, so we are providing a way. If people want to donate, we have a place for them to. And now we get Charlie Lee dropping another bombshell. I honestly don't care what people think of the foundation. We do our best to help Litecoin via development and adoption. We make no promises, and we don't owe anyone anything. Confidential transaction /Mimblewimble CT/MW development will come in time. We get most of our developments from Bitcoin, and that's perfectly fine. Litecoin works today. If we have zero improvements from now on, it doesn't diminish the fact that Litecoin works very well as money. I personally think adoption is much more important than core protocol development. Today, we need more people to know about Litecoin. We need better and easier to use wallets. We need merchants accepting Litecoin, something like Spedin, or supporting LTC, partnerships with Dolphins, work on Loaf Wallet, and new Lightning wallets is more important than adding fungibility to Litecoin. Yes, fungibility is important, as I've said in my tweets, but that is a long-term goal. People want an update today because they care about pumping the price. I don't care about that. They're not updating it, and they don't believe that updating it, Charlie doesn't believe that updating it is important. And as you've seen from earlier statements above this, Charlie doesn't believe that updating it is even possible. He thinks that if he had $1 million to go spend on coding, and believe me, he does, he wouldn't do that because he doesn't think that it's valuable. He doesn't see that he has people with the skills to achieve those goals. And now he's saying that essentially the only reason to update is to pump price, and he's not interested in doing that. So if you're invested in Litecoin because you want it to go up in value, I had a trace amount of Litecoin, which I have now sold. But it is certainly not something that I would think, given all of this information, is very important. And now you're seeing Charlie Lee drop some serious bombs in this private conversation that has leaked. I'll show you why we think it's an authentic leak in just a few minutes here, but this is a huge revelation that Charlie Lee sees that these, ads on the Miami Dolphins and these, little octagon ads in the UFC and integrations, with wallets are more important than actually updating the protocol to be more useful, to be better. And this is a, very concerning fact. You could make the argument that it has some merit, that the crypto works fine, that all you now need to do is get it supported by things that could make it spendable. Charlie Lee says, I've tried to find someone else to lead the Mimblewimble project, as I don't want to be the only person pushing this forward, but not having any success. Gosh, there is just damning comment after damning comment after damning comment that really throws the whole Litecoin project into this extremely negative light, which starts to feel as though there's not only nothing happening here, but that this is really dead no matter how much money is spent on it. You have really the only decision maker and actor in the whole Litecoin arena, Charlie Lee, saying money can't solve this, I can't solve this, the only other people working on this aren't working on this. And look at Charlie Lee. He's extremely rich. He sold all his Litecoin, and now he's got what is clearly an attitude of not caring and almost contempt from people who are trying to make him care about these issues. So to me, this is beyond negative. This is as damning as it could ever be for any project, when the only person who has any sway or any ability to fix things is actively disinterested in doing so. The way we know this is actually true is on Twitter here. CryptosRS posted the actual screenshots here where he went into the Litecoin group, and some people had posted his video that he broke this story on, and you have Charlie Lee saying, if you ask me in a less provocative way, I might answer you. And Charlie Lee says, it's true, but it's not a Litecoin Foundation chat room, just another Litecoin chat room that I'm in. Franklin got frustrated at some, and we hashed out our differences in a semi-public chat room. Well, there it is. Litecoin is enduring a significant rough streak indeed, a rough patch that I don't really see it resolving, given the attitude from Charlie Lee is not to resolve it, and he's the only one who seems to be able to do so. I'm really curious what you guys think about this whole story. What have you heard about it? Obviously, I'm not the first one to report on it. I'm not breaking the story. I think CryptosRS did a great job reporting it and summarizing it. Shout out to him for cracking this story wide open. But this is very, very significant to me of Litecoin, which is one of the most trusted, one of the oldest, one of the most integrated into all of the exchanges and all of the wallets and easiest to buy and trade and all that. For that reason, I don't think it's going to go away per se, but it's very, very concerning that the attitude towards this coin is, yeah, it's fine, just leave it be, and all we need is more people using it, more people using it. What do you guys think of that argument? Do you think that Charlie Lee's right at all? Do you think that Litecoin doesn't need to be updated, it just needs to be marketed? Do you think that it's okay to be promising things like confidential transactions when not only do they not have a plan for it, but they don't even have a single developer that they can pay with the money if they did have the money for it? And Charlie Lee, who could easily fund $100,000 partnership deals, is not seeing it as important to even spec out and hire a single dev to tackle this significant development project that he has announced as a top priority for Litecoin Foundation. Where do the ethical lines fall here? Is Litecoin a house of cards, as CryptosRS has called it, that is ready to collapse? Is Litecoin a total shitcoin that needs to be dropped? Is Litecoin a dumpster fire here? Or is this actually just the reality that you don't need to develop Litecoin much? It's fast, it's a silver to Bitcoin's gold, it's got its supply and demand curve, and all we need is more people using Litecoin, and magically it will become, more and more valuable. As a developer myself, I personally know the struggles of finding good help. And as my mother would say, time, energy, and money can solve just about anything. So if you have the time, you have the energy, and you have the money, and no problems are getting solved, I see some tremendous red flags. As usual, I hope this video brought you value. If it did, go ahead and throw a like. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to FUD TV, I encourage you to hit that sub button. As usual, I'm Elio Trades, you're watching FUD TV, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.